Okay, good. Mr. Shem, big time, not any more or less than every other time, but big Bezos Hashem this year. I don't know if we'll get to the part I was still not fully comfortable with yet in terms of the exact clarity of every shlav, every step of what the Rebbe is saying. Oftentimes when you get out of the entrance to the Torah, things get a little bit harder, a little more dense, just in terms of keeping track. Rabbi Nachman makes everything make so much sense, and he does so with so many steps. And it's not that so many steps that it's complicated, it's just so many steps that it actually makes it so much more smooth. But to keep track of those and to not have it just be one big fuzz is very important, obviously, especially for me who's trying to give it over, or trying to at least lead our chabura. Tonight, I don't think we're going to get exactly there yet, so we'll see where we hold. But we are going to hit a very, very fundamental topic here tonight, which I think, will definitely, give us a little bit of a boost. So I'm sorry you guys weren't here last time, but the person who was here last time wasn't here the first three, so there's a little bit of like catch up and moving on, but we did cover some ground inside. But I'll just summarize a little bit of what we started to get into last week, and we'll kind of finish off the first os and move into space. Okay, so as you know, as Chaver know, we've been discussing right? Belief in Chachamim, and what it means to have faith in Chachamim means to have faith in everything we do, because everything that we do was told us by the Chachamim to do, and the Emunah Chachamim means that I believe that Hashem is present in whatever I'm doing, and if I'm actually living with that consciously, let's put it this way, the way to live with that consciously is through Emunah Chachamim. And when I have Emunah Chachamim, when I have that focus, that belief, that the same way I believe that Shabbos is a Matan Tovah based Gnazai, the same way that I believe that tefillin should be black. Right? It's funny, tefillin being black is not even in the Torah, but I mean, neither Shabbos, whatever, but neither is that Gemara I was referring to. But I'm saying the same way that I believe in things that are so simple and so clear to me, that we know from Chazal, we would never question. As I just said, the color of tefillin. But I also believe that it's as true that Shabbos is this Matana Tova, that this tremendous gift from Hashem that I get to exist in, and it's talking to me. It's not only, the big Rebbe's Shabbos, it's even my Shabbos. It's not just Rabbi Nachman's Shabbos, it's our Shabbos as well. That's referring to all of us. That's Emunah Chachamim. Now last week, inside, we started speaking about the opposite, right? So just to be hard for me to guide you, but in the first big paragraph, we start with the words, Aval kishepoigim Emunah Chachamim, but when one defiles Emunah Chachamim, okay? So I'll give you the spot, I just tell Gary.
205.
Okay. Aval kishepoigim Emunah Chachamim, just to go over last week, but when one is not in that place of Emunah Chachamim, right? What happens when someone has Emunah Chachamim? His mishpatim come out, mishpatei emes, they come out, that everything he learns comes out in a way that's l'maisa, that's practical. He doesn't learn something and goes, this is extra, it's not for me, we'll see it in a second. So what happens when one violates, or one not violates, when one defiles Emunah Chachamim, one ruins, one spoils that Emunah Chachamim? As I need to be Giyas Basar, he's judged in Giyas Basar, which literally means like extra of the body, meaning waste. Hainu b'maisaros, which literally means waste. What does that mean? He's judged in waste, right? Look at the words, the plain words. B'maisaros, right? From the shorish of yoser, of extra, of additional, of unnecessary, right? Why? Because some Rebbe seems to like Chazal say in the Gemara in Eruvin, Haloig al divrei chachamim nidei mitzoyer etzachas. That one who mocks divrei chachamim, when it says, what? I don't see a treasure house. What basic gnazai? What creation? What wedding? What yichud? What unity are you experiencing? What unity do you claim to be experiencing with Hashem on Shabbos? I don't know what you're talking about. One who mocks the words of the Chachamim. The Gemara in Eruvin. He's judged in burning hot waste. Moshe says, right? And mocking, I play on the words lohag and loig, right? Lag harbe yigiyas basar, right? The one who's, the lohag harbe, he mocks lie yigiyas basar, the one who's extra yigiyas basar, extra of his flesh. And this being treated this way is actually not random. Meaning it's not random that Chazal say, you make fun of the Chachamim, you end up in Yegias Bas, you end up in the extras of the body, i.e. waste. You're judged in that very gross and disgusting and desecrating place. That's not random. It's not a random act of cruelty. It's not cruel and unusual punishment. It's actually tit for tat, mida connected mida. How? How's that possible? What did this guy do exactly in line with this harsh judgment that he's judged in a place of tremendous disgust and filth and obviously in a painful place? Says, because he doesn't believe in their words, and he mocks them. Okay, still waiting. Here we go, here's the punchline. Chazal's words are l'maisar etzlo. They're extra by him. Al kei nidam masaros. Therefore, he's judged in extras. Meaning like this: you want to say that the words of Chazal are superfluous? No problem. So we'll judge you in the world of superfluous, i.e., waste, right? Something the body doesn't need. Yigias basar, maisaros, things that are extra to the body. When the body doesn't need stuff, it throws it out. So this guy also says, I, as a yid, right, random guy, we're not going to give him a fake Jewish name, because we're obviously desecrating this person, but Ploini, right, random guy with no real name. He says, this Maimer Chazal is also extra for me. I can throw this one in the mental garbage can. So too, no problem. You like the world of mental garbage cans? You like the world of things that are extra, that are unnecessary, that aren't shaykh to you? What's less relevant and connected to you than the things that we flush down the toilet, right? So when you flush Divrei Chazal down the toilet, no problem. So we'll judge you in that space of things that get flushed down the toilet. That's the midah k'neged midah. That's the tit for tat. So now Rabbi Nachman is going to explain how kind of one comes to this place, right? He explained what happens when you do it, but how does one even get to that place where he is pogim when it's coming, right? Where does that come from, right? Backing it up a little bit. So first, Rabbi Nachman gives the background. The Rebbe gives the background. All mishpatim, the things that we're talking about of coming out of a limud, coming out from any interaction with Torah, any interaction with a tzaddik, to come out with something that's mishpat, that's clear, that's definitive, that's true and real, that I feel is practical and is alive and is so relevant to me, as relevant as anything else. All those mishpatim, they come from the brain. Right? This comes from the brain. Bebechinas, which is an element of, meaning coming from the pasuk, it's really hard to translate bebechinas. We're not going to use it all the time. Meaning that we're not just saying, I'm pulling this idea from the following place. Bebechinas, which is an element of the yiru pnei hamelech, this is talking about Shlomo HaMelech, the yiru pnei hamelech, and they feared from the king. Look at that puzzle. Couldn't be better than that. Right? Classic Rabbi Nachman. Why did they fear him? They saw the wisdom of God that was inside of him, the wisdom of Hashem that was inside of him. To make judgment, to judge cases. Right? Everyone knows the famous story with the two mothers who claimed that they were both the mother of the child, and Shlomo HaMelech had this crazy idea, let's cut the baby in half. And one mother said, okay. And the other mother said, no, just give her, you're the real mother, right? I always wondered, why that mother said, okay, you want half a dead baby. I mean, even the one who's claiming, it worked, obviously. But
she lost her baby, she wanted the other person to feel upset also.
Ah, okay, I hear that. And she was okay with it as long, right, I hear.
Nobody gets a baby.
Right. Good stuff. But the real love doesn't care as long as he's happy and healthy and beautiful. Thank you for that, Sess. So they saw that Shlomo HaMelech, there was a fear, there was like an amo, right? When you know someone, imagine you knew that there was someone who you were able to interact with. You knew for 100% fact that this is Ruach HaKodesh. It's a crazy thing to interact with someone. You know that they're receiving and able to disseminate Hashem, Das Elokim. It's just the Das of Hashem, the wisdom of Hashem, straight through them. But what it has supposed to say? There's a wisdom, right? From the brain. Last is mishpat. And Rabbi Nachman goes a step further, right? So where does mishpatim come from the moach? How do we know that from Shlomo HaMelech? And what makes the moach? What determines if that moach is going to pump out good or bad, right? Mishpatenu l'or or mishpat mukal, right? Mishpatenu that are illuminated with the light of Hashem, or mishpatim that are all twisted and messed up. and tell you that, Lulav's not for you, and Hoshana Rabbah is only for the crazy Hasidic men and not for the common folk. Leil Hoshana Rabbah is not actually, for Hasidim and Borough Park is holy, not for us simple Jews here in Oceanside. That's Mishpat Mukul. What's Mishpat La'or that leads us to stay up late by Stas' house and Mishpat this year also? Yeah, well, where's that? How does that happen? So the Mayach, Hu Lefiyah Muslim, and this is very, very 2025 appropriate, right? That the brain is according to what you eat, right? We all know how important it is to eat certain foods, right? Certain foods will make your brain sharp, certain foods don't. You know, everyone can think back to the big tests they had in their life and their mothers or themselves or their spouses telling them you better eat the right breakfast, good day, all those different things. All right? And when the body's clean, the mayach is bar, then the brain can think clearly. Right? It's interesting, guf naki, it's obviously continuing the same point. I don't want to say something else, but we're not saying the inside of the body is clean, right? I mean, that when there's things in there that are good, as I'm bar, then the brain can think clearly. And then Mishpatei Emes can come out, right? Hanokas Yisharos, proper, straightforward, just ideas. But when you're judging Maisaros, when you're judging that place of extra, which which came about from you're not believing in Emunah, you're not having Emunah properly. So now it's interesting. It kind of seems that Rabbi Nachman kind of flipped the order here, right? Like we were kind of saying, right? There's this thing here called Emunah. Now you take it back a step, that comes from the Malach. Take it back a step, that comes from the Guf being aligned. Now Rabbi Nachman seems to, I'm really asking this question, I just realized this now. Then Rabbi Nachman says, when you're judged in Maisaros, which we thought was the last step, right? And we thought we were giving a bunch of prequels now, right? Oh, the last step is either Emunah or Pagam Emunah, right? Proper Emunah or lack of that. So where does that come from? Right? It comes from the brain, okay? Both come from the brain. Now what's the difference? Oh, this guy is Guf Naki and this guy doesn't. But now it almost seems like we're working backwards. Look what he says now. But when you're judged in Maisaros, which comes about because of Pagam, then you have these smoke vapors that go to your brain. So now it seems like Pagam is the cause, not the effect, right? And it seems like...
So you're saying the converse is also true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's possible. Right. Maybe it's a constant process that's going both ways. I hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just reading it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, right. Yeah. It could also be that maybe Emunah is the first step. And when you have Emunah, but I'm trying to fit the Guf Naki thing. Besides the fact that what Gary's saying also 100% probably is or could be true, I want to even just say both ways. I mean, I want to say yes, it can go both ways, but I also want to say how in it going wrong, it can still be those same orders before, right? So let's say maybe it's like this. Maybe that it's first is you either have Emunah or you don't, right? Now that's going to be, right, because again, how did it start off? I did Emunah, right? So Emunah is the cause, the effect is right, Mishpatenu coming out properly, right? Mishpah coming out properly. So, and when you said Mishpah's from the Moach, so it almost sounded like that was, so maybe it's actually the two ends, right? Emunah is one end, and then actually the last was Yosef Mishpatenu La'or. If I have Emunah, then my guf, right? It's not right because we didn't say. The Rebbe's not saying like, oh, like if you eat well. He says it's Lefiyah Muslim. I'm not saying he's not saying that, but he's saying Lefiyah Muslim. So, but then he also says that if you have these smoke vapors which come from Pagam, let me say it first. Let me say it like this. This is what I think he's saying now. I think what he maybe could have been saying both times is like this: when you have Mishpatei Emes, then your brain can think properly. And then Mishpatenu can come out properly. When you have Pagam L'Sachamim, then you have these damaging vapors that go to your brain and mess with your brain and then you don't have Mishpatenu properly. the only thing that's missing is again what Stas gave me a side head for, which is that, and again I'm with you. I'm comfortable with that structure, and I'm also comfortable with Gary said. I think both can be true 100%. Gary, you should also know one of the early mashpim in Breslov wrote what's called the Chai Klalim, which are 18. It's in the actually beginning of your book in English. That there's 18 principles that like are understood that are like fundamental to learning the Torah. That like there's almost like these rules in terms of one of them is, for example, that everything in a Torah is self-contained. Yes, there are things that maybe there's no need of anything outside of. For example, you don't need you don't understand this Gemara because this Gemara on Daf Ches, right? No, there's none of that. Because every Torah is self-contained. That's one of the things. Another one of the things is that every Torah could be, and this is the one that's relevant that I'm mentioning, every Torah would make sense forwards and backwards. That like after you read a Torah, you should be able to also like walk it back and see how it'll have a flow backwards also. I mean, backwards in ideas, not literally. That you can go from the last idea to the first idea, and also. So that's why like I'm very comfortable to roll with that shot as well. But that's the only thing I'm missing here is that like why is Rabbi Nachman saying that it's like lefia mazon, as if like that there's a step there, sustenance, meaning that that there's a food component too. But then like on the backside, it's not that the guy ate poorly. It's that there's this other thing that comes about from Begamus Chacham that creates these smoke vapors, which is going to very not clear exactly what that is, physical, spiritual, both. Not what is it? But Lamaisa, so let's keep reading. But I think we have enough to work. Either we'll say it's forwards and backwards, or we'll say that it goes Mishpatei Emes. Then your brain gets the proper spiritual thing it needs to then be send out Mishpatim properly, or not. If you have Begamus Chachamim, then your brain is not aligned properly, then you won't come out with the proper things, right? Think about anything, right? That if
you eat right, you'll have faith, and if you have faith, you'll eat right. Sort of these sort of backwards and forwards sort of ways.
Again, he says again. Also, just always with the sensitivity, the word achil is not mentioned. The word achil is not mentioned. So as much as what mazun literally means sustenance and food. So. It could be that we're saying that. Let's read to the end of the paragraph. We'll come back. Or I'm happy to also leave it as a shayla. We can hack it out more in a second. But let's just read because I want to just give us the other side first.
Also, we have in brackets a person eats. A person eats, so it's not in the text.
Right. No. That is the for sure pashut. What does it mean, Muslim? What's sustenance, right? Yeah. Sustenance is food, right?
Right.
So. Again, but again, that translation is a very good one, but it's made by people who are true wrestlers and big balei Emunah. But again, without the word achila, there's I just don't want to dive 100% into that, although it's pretty pashut. But let's keep going. All right, so we'll leave our little piece that we still need to just finish off a little bit. But what happens? But if you're nidam b'mosaros, right? If you're judged in that place, which comes about through Pegamus Chachamim. Again, the first step, right? Again, go back to the beginning of the Torah. The first step is Emunah Chachamim. You have it or you don't. Then what happens after that is Mishpateinu go wrong. What happens in between? Okay, so it's like something goes wrong for the Pegamus. We're trying to really. Our question right now is what happens when things are right. How do I make things proactively go right? Meaning, is it just Emunah Chachamim on its own does that? The same way Pegamus Chachamim does that on its own. So what's the mention of Mazon? What's the mention of seemingly like some outsourcing of food? Right. Like bananas work, but like Laffy Taffies don't. Like I'm saying, like, also true, but I hear.
Exactly.
I hear it. It's definitely also true. But the question, I hear it. So let's keep reading for a second. Yeah. As I Elam Hashem Sruchim Alamayach. There's some from Pegamus Chachamim. There's some sort of smoke vapors that are damaging that go to the brain, right? Poisonous chemical vapors on a ruchnis level. They mix up and they confuse the das, right? And therefore he's no longer able to come out with mishpatei emes, to come out with true mishpatim, true, clear, concise, accurate ideas. Therefore, the mishpat comes out crooked. Which is the element of ki rasha machtir es tzaddik, right? It's the rasha being machtir the tzaddik, right? Which is backwards, meaning that the rasha, leaving the context of the pasuk out of it, ki rasha machtir es tzaddik mean what's the Rebbe referring to here? That you have a rasha, meaning the asham mesruchim are machtir the tzaddik, are crowning the tzaddik, are crowning the das, which therefore allows things to go wrong, right? Tzaddik is because das, right? Because das is obviously the tzaddik has the das of Hashem, right? So hirashu maftir tzaddik means that you have right now you have the Hashem Sruchim, which are like the Rasha, that are crowning the tzaddik, that are giving the tzaddik its glory, giving the das its glory, which therefore is obviously not going to go well. Therefore, because you have a Rasha, pulling the strings, being the puppeteer back there, therefore mishpat is going to be mughal. Hainu shal yidei sha'ashanim sruchim misavivim umakifin hamoyach umabalblenoso. Now the Rebbe deepens it. I'm not sure exactly what he's adding here. He says different words, but let's try to understand it together. Hainu yidei sha'ashanim sruchim misavivim umakifin. Right. So now he says a different thing. Now he's getting a little more detailed. The Rebbe's getting a little more details with exactly how these ashanim are doing what they do. Right? What do? They surround. Right? Two really words of surround. They surround. I'm not sure the difference between saviv and makif. I think makif is more. Is like more broad. It's not just, like saviv just seems like, I would guess is more kind of like a one liner around. I'm saying it's just a little bit based off random associations. Mm-hmm. And makifin I think is a little bit more consuming, surrounding. But the idea is it's totally surrounded and engulfed by these Hashanah Tzruchim. All right, you can imagine like I don't know, think of any think of a dish coming out of the oven that's totally, you can't even see it because the steam's all around it, right? Take something out of the microwave, for instance, right? You can't even see it for that second because it's totally consumed by the steam that surrounds it. And it messes with it. They say right? We say at the end of Halukah Mishpatim Bal Yidon. Right? Lo asakein l'chol goy. You won't do this for any of the other nations. Mishpatim bal yidom. Mishpatim, proper mishpatim. Mishpatim lo'or. Right? Justices that are properly brought out the lo yidom. The goyim don't know from that. Right? That's Rabbi Nachman's point on those words. Again, Hainu bilbul amoichin, which is bilbul amoichin. Okay, what exactly Rabbi added at the end there? Not 100% sure. I mean, we see what he added. He mentioned that it surrounds the moach. But why do we need to know exactly that detail? Okay, but I think going back to what we said before, we still have to figure out exactly where Muslim plays in, because the Rebbe didn't say that. It kind of seems like, because whatever's true for the pagam is going to be true for the real thing, right? In the pagam, we said that once you just have, if you're putting Emunah Chachamim, then Hashem Yisrael can go up. So that's quote the bad Muslim. So what's a good Muslim? So a good Muslim comes from Emunah Chachamim. Then why call it Muslim?
It has a little footnote here that discusses the Parparot L'Chochma by the
Parparot L'Chochma is like one of the main commentaries early, yeah.
And so he says that if you eat wrong, you're unable to eliminate waste, and that builds up and results in foul vapors.
So it's really medieval like that. The Rebbe's getting very literal.
Literally, absolutely.
Right. Like mom's referring to like gas.
No. I mean, this seems to refer to the exact same foul vapors as the.
No, I'm saying the mashal. In the mashal, it's referring to like almost like acid built like things that are bad. Someone's when your body's trying to reject something. We've all been there. We've all needed a Pepsid. That's what it is. Okay, fine. So I guess it could be also that the Rebbe kind of is just. It's a little. I think that maybe again, almost like using Gary's creativity for a different sense here. That maybe on the one side the Rebbe was giving us right. I mean, Gary wanted to say that for the Emunah Chachamim going right, he gave it us one way. Then Pagam is going back. So maybe you could also say that for Emunah Chachamim, the Rebbe gave us also the physical version, that you actually can also impact this physically. Mm-hmm. And in the Pagam version, the Rebbe didn't mention that, although it's probably true based on the fact. But the Rebbe mentioned how spiritually it's also going down. Right? The Rebbe makes no mention in Pagam Zacham that there's any eating involved, that there's bad Muslim. Okay, fine. Let's finish this last little chunk here, which is new territory for all of us here. V'doig, and one who worries, or Doeg himself is what he was referring to here. Doeg was one of the advisors, I believe, of Shaul. And Doeg's famous for saying that David HaMelech shouldn't have been allowed to be part of Klal Yisrael because he's a Moabite, right? And there's halacha is that no Moabite can convert, right? He's from Rus, Moabi, right? So let's see what happened. V'Doeg. So Doeg, who was again one of the advisors of Shaul, Al Yidei Shelimuto Hayya B'Bechinas Elu HaMoisaros. So Doeg is going to be our prime example. The Rebbe brings a prime example of someone who got it wrong. Someone who Mishpatim came out very crooked, right? We just mentioned a very, very crooked type of judgment about it, right? David HaMelech was the father of Mashiach. We're talking about our king, Malcolm Mashiach. So what did Doeg say? So let's give the background first. So Shalimudo, his limud, this mashal is perfect. We're gonna have someone who was learning, and his improper learning led to an improper judgment. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had an example from Nach? Huh? Here we go. Doeg. Shalimudo, his learning, his learning was an element of these maestros that we're describing. Well, what happened? Which is said about Doeg. Visham, and there, this was actually when David's running away from Shaul HaMelech, right? And David makes a pit stop at Achimelech to ask him for food by the base of Midrash, and he ends up giving him the food that they're taking off of the lechem upon him, the showbread, and they're about to switch it, so he gave him some of that. And in the meantime, right, kind of right there, Visham, and there, I mean, this is like almost like a side point to the interaction between David and Achimelech that was happening, because David needed food, he was on the run. Visham ish me'avdei Shaul ne'atzar lefnei Hashem u'shmo Doeg. And one of the people of the servants of Shaul stopped there with Hashem before Hashem, right before the base of Midrash. Shmo Doeg, and his name is Doeg. Sorry, not the base of Midrash. This is still before that. Uperish Rashi. What does Rashi say? Oitzer Atzmo. He stopped himself. What does it mean? He stopped himself before? What does it say? Netzar l'fnei Hashem. He stopped before Hashem. What does it mean? He stopped before Hashem. Sounds like he was about to be by Hashem, but he didn't interact with him. What does Rashi say there? Saw the Rashi inside today, Mamash on one-liner. Oitzer Atzmo lasuk b'Torah. He stopped himself to learn Torah. He's about to be the Oil Moed, he's about to be the Mishkan, and then he said, and he stopped. And he stopped to learn. His learning at that moment was a bechina of stoppages. Meaning what? He's saying that, why are you learning at the Oel Moed? You're there. What are you doing? What are you missing here? So that learning itself was maestros. It was extra. You're there. You're at Dveikus. Why do you learn? To be there. To be in this intimacy of Dveikus with Hashem. And at that moment, you realize, Hashem, wait a sec. Let me go to the means, even though I'm already at the end. Let me go back to the thing that gets me to this place that I'm already at this moment. Right? This is what we do all the time. We do this all the time. We have to try to not be Doeg, right? And it comes from Navi Moshe, right? There's Chaz Navi Moshe. We do this all the time. How many times are we in situations where we have our Dveikus right in front of us and we say, wait, let me do this other thing. This is literally, hot take, this is learning during Chazar Shatz. This is learning during davening. I'm not saying if you're in a situation where you have a minion, that you finish one esrei and they're waiting, of course, take a minute, learn. This is that I'm running, I'll never forget this, it bugs me out. I was in a shul once, let's pretend it's a fake story. I heard it once from a guy who was in a shul, in a mashal, not a real thing, but hypothetically, it's hard to believe such a thing. I tried to tell myself that I wasn't seeing it, and I wish I didn't. But I was once in a shul, and I saw a guy, I don't want to say I swear. I actually I'm willing to believe if Hashem told me that Moshe, you were delirious that day, I would believe it. I was in a shul and during Kesser, right? I was in Sixvarts, so we were saying Kesser. There's no games. We're saying Kesser. Kesser Yidnu L'Chal Hashem Elokeinu. It's Musaf and Shabbos. Hashem, we give you the crown. Guys in the Gemara. What is that for if not for this? What are you trying to learn Gemara for if not to crown Hashem?
For yourself. That's the problem, right?
Of course. Also why, in this week's parasha, by the way, that's what Stas is saying, at the beginning of the parasha, this coming week's parasha, Parasha Shoftim, we talk about if someone does Avodah Zarah amongst the Machane, and you find out that it's true, you kill them in front of everyone. Yeah. We can't have that poison Klal Yisrael. And the lashon there is ubeyarta hara mikirbecha. You remove the evil from your midst. A few psukim later, people have a dispute in judgment. They can't figure it out. They go to the Kohen, Beis Midrash. Kohen says, "Here's a psak." right? I'm Shar Sagi, right? Mishpateinu Lor, right? Gets a mishpat from a tzaddik. Emunah Chacham. It's literally Emunah Chacham. And one guy ignores it, that guy also gets killed, right? And what is it supposed to say? Similar lashon, different. I didn't get into why the difference from Mikir Becha to Ubei Arda Harami Yisrael. This is Yisrael, but it's literally the same lashon. This guy does this, you kill him, and the pasuk says, and now you've removed the evil from amongst you or from amongst Klal Yisrael. So the question I asked is very simple. The question I was thinking of is, we're equating Avodah Zarah to ignoring a judgment. You know? Big difference, Lamashal, right? You have someone who threatens the president's life or something like that. Right? It says that the president makes a public statement and says the president shouldn't be president, he's not worthy, etc. Is that the same as a guy who doesn't want to pay a fine on a traffic ticket? The two are equated. I think in our Torah it's Pashut, right? What is lacking in Musacham? It's Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah, we're so used to growing up. Avodah Zarah means like an idol. Like there's this Buddha doll on the table that I'm bowing to. Avodah Zarah means foreign worship. That could be yourself. It could be the Gemara. You could worship the Gemara, right? Rav Weinberger, once someone told me this a long time, it was a great deal. Rav Weinberger, years ago, at the beginning of Aish, Rav Weinberger this is like the rant that was shaykh then. Apparently a lot of guys were going to movies with their wives. Motzei Shabbos. And guys would say, Shalom Bayis, Shalom Bayis. And they meant it. And Rav Weinberger said, don't let Shalom Bayis become Avodah Zarah. Again, a balance of trust me. We respect our wives and we want them to be happy and we want to, serve them properly. But again, it's foreign worship. It's not right. It's not for Hashem. That's Avodah Zarah. You mamish do Avodah Zarah. You ignore a psak din. You don't have a Emunah Chacham. Why? Because you don't believe that kohen has the ability to give a psak that's emes. Because if you did, then you would follow it. You're saying this psak is not emes, which means you're saying Hashem is not giving this kohen the ruach hakodesh, the das elokim that we're talking about Shlomo Melech. That's Avodah Zarah. You're denying it. That's why they're equated. That's why they get the same exact punishment. They're equally as poisonous and as damaging, which to the naked eye seems like, how can you compare the two? This guy's getting killed in front of everyone. This guy's getting killed in front of everyone. What's the equation? A few psukim them apart. I think Hashem's trying to communicate to us. Don't mistake Avodah Zarah just for straight up worshiping idols. Avodah Zarah can be just as damaging, just as real, just as real. This is our Torah. Doeg is looking Hashem in the face and says, "1 sec, come on, Kesser, give me a sec. Isn't that? We fast tracked you. We're here. Kesser, you Hashem. Again, that example. Okay, we see it sometimes, but then no one would ever open a Gemara during Hashem Elokim or the Tkiyah Shefer after Nehila. No, because thank God, at least we're not that messed up, right? No one's that off. But it's equally as off to learn during. Again, at the same time, there are Rabbeim who learn during Chazar Shatz, and they're Cheshbonis, but for us simple Jews, we don't understand such things. Halacha seems pretty clear. Let's finish Doeg, and then we'll continue. His learning was like a stopping. Bechinas Meisaros, it was extra, meaning, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I don't think you're there. Therefore, from that limud, he was not able to come out with mishpatei emes, with clear, true judgments. Rather a crooked judgment. And therefore, what was his crooked judgment that came out from him? Hayadan shein David Ravi Lavav Bekal. Like one of Yavama says, that he would judge that David isn't worthy to come into the nation, to the congregation of the Jewish people. That's because his limud, his learning was from a place of Meisaros. Right? We see a person can learn the way that he learns, right? Right? Maybe mazon is even spiritual sustenance. Your mazon, what you intake, right? How many times do we see this? That whenever you see someone say a crazy thing, it's because they're built on crazy beliefs, right? Hamas doesn't believe, to go really extreme to one end of the spectrum here, Hamas doesn't believe what they believe because it doesn't come from nowhere. They have a charter. They have textbooks. They've poisonous education that then leads to a belief, which then leads to jihad, which then leads to the slaughter of innocent Jews. It's not random. There's steps to things. When something comes out crooked, that's not like unless it's followed by a very quick apology, or even if it's not followed by an apology, even if it is followed by an apology, still, that mistake even comes from a place, right? That it comes from my misunderstanding of things, my inability to evaluate things, right? How is it that I've told the story before? We'll finish with this. Right, Moshe the Berditchever. Right, the Berditchever Berditchever had an older chassid, and he had an older chassid who had converted to Christianity, to the surprise of a lot of the chassidim, and the shamashim, the close chassidim of the Rebbe, were coming to tell him. And the Jewish Levi was known to be the advocator of all Jews, and Mamish down the was not fake. It wasn't game by him. It wasn't like, let's come up with some creative thing as to how the guy who was learning Gemara during Kesser, wasn't learning Kesser. He didn't he wouldn't have seen that. He'd be like, oh, he for sure doesn't hear Kedusha, and believe that with every ounce of his being, just as much as he believed what he saw. Right? I have to work to believe that he didn't hear what was happening. So the Chassidim were, much as they loved the Rebbe, not in a mocking way, we're very curious how the Rebbe's how's he gonna see this one as like, he converted to Christianity. It's pretty black and white. And they came in and they told the Rebbe, we have some horrible news. The uncle, he went off the derech. He went to join the church. And the Rebbe gave like a big sigh. He's like, He said, no. He's fighting this taiva for decades, and he's old. In his old age, he lost his strength to fight it. I mean that. The Rebbe was saying that there must have been in him this desire for so long, the questions that were burning inside of him, and in his old age, he lost the ability to fight it. But the Rebbe didn't just come out like that. That's someone who built Ahavas Yisrael. He understood what it means, what Hashem is, and understood what a Yid is, and therefore he can now come out with the most yasher way to see something. What smoother, Hashem-filled way to see something. Is there any greater Yotzim Shvitein Lore than that? To see something just sharp right through it. The Berditchever had his version of Emunah Chachamim. That's what Emunah Chachamim does. It's inside of you that you now come to situations sharp right through it. That's a mudam to Isa. That's the middle path. Derech HaMamutza. No, not going Yeminu small. That's also this week's parasha, by the way, is our line. Right, that which the Chazal tell you, small, should have in our Torah. Small, that being in Torah is our parasha. So, Mitzvah Hashem, we should continue to not be doig and to stay in the world of Moshe Chachamim and see and only see good things and see Hashem in our life. Sure.